I mean, you got the first NHL beat out in a non-traditional market with Florida. What was the first oh shit moment when you got to Minnesota and realized it was a very different fan base you were working with?
Probably the advent of Twitter in 2009. When I first got on it, that's when I'm like, oh, now they could talk right to me. Some guy on Instagram just trashed me. So after telling him to fuck off, I blocked him. So like which I'm a little grittier than Joe when it comes to that type of stuff. Yeah, I mean, in terms of a lot of it is social media and all that. So like, it's just easier to get, but it was just such on a grander scale. Like in Florida, I was able to basically be in my lane and nobody would even know who I was. They knew my name, but they didn't, like, if you're walking through the mall, they didn't know you. Now it's not that way just because of stuff like this. Back when I was on Bally's Sports North, the number of radio and just visual things that you do, but it's just so much grander. I mean, everybody that comments on your stuff knows the sport, played the sport, coached the sport. So it just feels like there's no pretending, there's no like faking that you know what you're talking about. You better know what you're talking about. For the state of Minnesota, even though obviously Joe's from Michigan and I'm from New York originally, for them to accept a couple Floridian hockey writers, so to speak, in a place where they all know this sport, I think it says everything about the respect level that people have just for wanting coverage that's quality and things like that. So it wasn't really an oh shit moment, but it definitely, I came at that perfect time where all of a sudden you started to, it was like pardon the interruption, where all of a sudden sports writers were on the radio and TV and
sure.
and then video podcasts and things like that. And so it's just a lot bigger now. You sort of know who you're writing for, like when people come to my podcasts, I know who they are from years of them. They'll come up to me and tell me their Twitter name. And I'm like, oh yeah. Like now I know who you are because I've known them on Twitter since I started it, 16 years ago.
Oh man. And I mean, with the Twitter stuff, like, I know that maybe you haven't always been like totally nice, but more lately you've been pretty quick to fire back on fans. And I'm sure you're aware, like people like myself, I'm kind of addicted to just seeing you clap back at some of the idiots. But like, when did you actually like flip the switch and be like, all right, I don't care, I'm going to say what I want to say?
Well, I don't know if I ever flipped the switch. I mean, I'm Italian. I'm from New York. I'm my father's son. There's three things right there that's in my DNA that's going to make me just explode on somebody. I don't know. I mean, I trust me. There are a lot of times the second I tweet something, I regret it. And I'm like, that was unprofessional. It was immature. It was, why'd you let them get to you and things like that. I think that what the fans need to know, and Joe handles this so much better than me, but when you're constantly, especially when the team stinks, and even though it's not our job to worry if the team stinks or care if the team stinks, when you're constantly inundated with negativity on a constant basis, it just affects you. It just affects you. And if somebody comes at me, and even if I don't strike back then, I'm like, all right, I don't care. It bothers you for the rest of the day. And then eventually something happens that makes me finally reply. So I don't know. I will say this. So I was in Vegas, and if this police officer is watching this, he's going to remember this story. And I wish I can remember his name. But I was in Vegas a couple weeks ago, and I went downstairs to meet up with Liam Ogren's family, and wound up running into like Pierre-Marc Bouchard while I was with this cop. But this cop comes over to me. He's been a Vegas cop for 25 years, but he's originally from Minnesota. Huge Wild fan, huge Minnesota sports fan, and he follows me on Twitter. And he gave me a pep talk that day. He's like, I got to tell you, you've got to stop letting these people get to you. Don't go back. You're giving them, like, he was just giving me this pep talk. I actually left him. I hope he's watching this because I never got to tell him. But like, I actually left him, and for like 5 days, I was thinking about this conversation. And when people would come at me on Twitter about something with the team, like I had this guy's head in my thing. Like, this police officer told me not to fight back, to let that I'm going to make them win basically if I do it. So, so I thank that guy, and I'll make sure that I 100% try to act on my best behavior, even though I can't always guarantee that I will. So.